Well, speaking of mates, I know this is a relatively new mate of yours. Let's bring back Todd Field to join Martin McDonagh. Welcome back.
I just want to say that I'm part Irish. My distant
Are you
relative,
still open for acting roles?
Margaret O'Halloran from Galway, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, maybe there's a collaboration here. Let me ask, I guess, just first of all, if you can share, like, you guys have met before, but not extensively?
We were just talking about that earlier. We met in Venice for the first time. At, what was it, an opening? Because it wasn't...
No, we met at Venice. You were getting a prize. Kate was getting a prize.
Yeah. So it was a week after we
It was a week after, yeah.
Yeah. And we've kind of been on the road selling this stuff for like, was it 6 months, a year? How long have we been doing this?
I don't know, Martin.
That was September with Venice.
So we bumped into each other at other events and roundtables and all that stuff. And this is kind of the part of it that I kind of like, because the nominees are all really nice, and the films are all brilliant, and thank God. But it's... Thank God they cut out the...
Right.
Stop.
Yeah, I did, I stopped.
Well, so here, along the lines of where I think you're going, though, you know, directing is a fairly solitary job, I think, in the sense at least you're not around a lot of other directors. You're the commander of your own ship. So you guys being here tonight and having heard and listened to, you know, the kind of track record of each other's work, which I'm sure you've seen anyway, I wondered, is there a question that you guys might have for each other just about what you do? Is there something you're curious about the way the other works?
I believe you did invent the bubble gum and put them into cards. I think you might be older than you've led us to believe.
You know, he got all the best questions. You asked him about all his other films and his playwriting, everything, and I got the bubblegum and the tequila.
Well, here's your chance, though. I guess, like, you know, is there something? What do you, when you meet other filmmakers, what are you most curious about how they approach something that you do?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to see that they're alive. You know, it's a very, you know, I remember when I started at the American Film Institute, after making my first short film, like what you're talking about, trying to put, you know, everything you possibly can into it, I wanted to go back to every director I'd ever met and like wax their car. You know, I felt like I hadn't helped them enough, you know, because I don't think that anyone that hasn't done this job understands this job. You know, so my hat's off to anyone who's done it. And I'm so thrilled to meet other filmmakers. I'm so thrilled to meet Martin, you know.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, an interesting thing is, I want to talk about because you guys are also obviously usually the writer, I think almost exclusively the writers of the films that you've made. Is that something that you would you ever consider making a film that someone else wrote, or is that so integral to the process for you that you would?
It has been for me up until this point, but I'm kind of running out of scripts, so... Have you got anything laying about?
Yeah, we'll talk after.
And Todd, I guess this is an original script, Tar. Your two prior features were adaptations. Do you prefer? What are the pros and cons of those, of adapting versus originating material?
That's a good question. I like that question.
Thank you.
This is going to be a good answer.
In all seriousness, you know, yes, the other two films were adaptations, and I worked alongside other writers, and it was much less lonely. I guess the main difference is that, you know, I've had the privilege of working with the people that originated these characters that we're adapting and their worlds that they built. And I've learned a lot. You know, I've learned a lot from working with Jonathan Franz, and I've learned a lot from working with Joan Didion, and I've learned a lot from working with Tom Perrotta and Jess Walter and others. And going back to your question about what kind of question would you ask another director when you meet them, you know, writers, unless they work in writer's room, are a fairly solitary, misanthropic bunch. You know, we're not really happy people. You know, and so it's so nice to find another. You know, misery loves company. You know, so. But I guess, you know, in this case, you know, I've been sort of openly envious of my fiction friends, and I'd always ask them, what's it like, you know, to sit down and just be able to do what Martin does, and they said, it's fucking great, you know, and they're right. Yeah. So yeah, it's better.
That being said, Martin, would you, all of your feature films have been original? Do you ever read a book or something and say, I wish I could make this into a film? Would you ever consider adapting?
I haven't up until this point, because I always felt like it was more interesting to keep coming up with new things, and up until this point, it's worked out that way. I think I'm going to stick to that.
Yeah.
But I have seen a few things later that you kind of wonder if it's worth going down that route. But right now, I'm still sort of determined to keep cracking on. Yeah.
You mentioned Pinter as being a giant influence, you know, in your sort of semi-allergy to theater. And I reckon that you've studied the films that he wrote as well, right?
Yeah.
I imagine you're a big fan of the
very much. And you kind of almost wonder what would a film that he directed be like too. He had such an imprint, obviously, on all of the movies he made, and obviously all of the plays. But you kind of wonder if that would have freed him up even more, if he'd have loved it or not. We'll never know.
Just coming back to, you know, commonalities and differences. Obviously, we mentioned a lot of the theater work of Martin and Todd. Does theater appeal to you in any significant way? Doing playwriting?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd love to be able to have the time to go back into the theater. You know, theater is really an actor's medium and a playwright's medium, but it takes time. And as Martin was pointing out, not being able to get high earners necessarily to want to go on stage and take that time out, you have to be able to organize yourself and your life in a way to be able to do theater, because nobody gets rich doing theater. You know, it's very hard. That you have to invest a certain amount of yourself and your fortune to be able to actually to do theater and do it properly.
Yeah.
Did you act on stage much?
Yeah, I started on stage.
So, again, we mentioned writing and directing, both pretty solitary endeavors a lot of the time in certain respects. That being said, is there anyone before your work goes out, whether it's a script or a completed film, or before it goes out to the world, whose opinion about it do you value the most? Is there anyone in your life who gets to weigh in before the executives or whoever else?
I wouldn't say weigh in, but I've always made my films for one person, and she's very tough.
Martin?
Yeah, lately I've been giving it to showing my scripts to my girlfriend. Before that, I was...
May I share who this person? No, okay. All right.
They can Google it.
Very talented person as well.
But she's quite good, and she's quite tough.
Yes.
She's really...
Yes. Very talented.
She's too tough, actually. But before that, but at the same time, I don't know if you have the... I think you have to... Just so you don't get the executive kind of stuff, I think you have to have a strong sense of its pluses and its minuses, and I don't know if you feel that way before you give it to her, does she sway you if it's a negative?
Well, I mean, we work differently because she actually is a writer as well. So she wrote my last film at the American Film Institute, and she's very, very keen eye. It's always kind of weighing the checks and balances of giving her something. In actual fact, I've always given her the script when I finished, and she's always had something to say. And that's always been very difficult, but always better after we get past the sort of problem. My problem, not hers, you know. But on this one, we made this decision that we weren't going to do anything, and she didn't see the film. This is the first time ever until I showed it to her when it was finished in London about 2 weeks before Venice. So that was a really frightening situation. It worked out, but there was no guarantee, you know.
Wow. So you didn't want to show it to her any earlier in the process?
No, I think she didn't want to go through that with me. I asked her, believe me. I mean, we talked about certain, you know, vague things, and she was extremely helpful, as she always is, but she didn't, she just patently refused to read it, so.
Okay, so we mentioned that you both went through the awards season process for the first time in the first decade of the 21st century. We're now, in both of your cases, more or less approximately 20 years later, a little bit more, a little bit less. What are the most marked ways in which this whole time of year has changed between then and now? Todd?
I will, if I remember this correctly. I mean, this is 22 years ago since I had my first film out. God, I'm so old. But back then, you know, we didn't have smartphones and we didn't have the internet other than, you know, maybe AOL and email, you know, when AOL was a thing. And there was no podcasts. And as a society, our attention was a little calmer. And so when you went out with a film, you might go to one foreign festival. I think I went to Deauville, I went to Montreal, I went to Toronto. In Toronto, you would sit down with press and you would do your video press, and that was it. And after that, maybe you would talk to a reporter at Premiere Magazine when there was still a print magazine, and maybe David Anson at Newsweek, and maybe Entertainment Weekly, and that was it, you know? And so the amount of time that you spent in the so-called fourth quarter specialty, you know, world of film, other than if you were fortunate enough to show up and have your film and you know, others recognized in some manner, was very, very brief, you know. And I think that's how it was 22 years ago, and that's certainly how it was back in 2006 and 2007. This year is something else, you know.
Yeah, it's great. Like in Bruges, I don't think I did a single interview or anything. That could have been because the production company was trying to promote milk instead of us, but I'm not better. But but I think there was a good bit more for Three Billboards, because that was only like 4 or 5 years ago, and you kind of saw a little bit into the machine that it's become. And I think I was still sort of slightly on the outs with it, but this is something else. It's crazy, but it's a proper machine on it. So it's like a different business almost, like they intersect, but it's strange. I don't know if it's because all the friends are nominated too, but I kind of find it fun. I like Googling it and checking the odds and, you know, making some side bets.
Right.
Which I'm not sure if is illegal for the Academy. Do you know, Todd? Anyway, I won some money back on the Free Billboards days by betting against myself. So if you want to make some money this year, do the same.
Along those, you know, follow-up to that question, what is the one question about your film this season, that you wish you never have to answer again?
So you wrote this film with Cate Blanchett in mind?
Okay, Martin?
I hate getting that question too, yeah, about, why did Cate Blanchett not want to do your Irish film? She can do everything.
Yeah, right. What is the 2022 movie not represented on this stage that you would most recommend to our attendees tonight?
I loved Women Talking. I think that's like I saw it in Toronto, the world premiere, and I think Sarah Polley's amazing. I think that's just a stunning piece of work.
Todd?
I agree with you. I would say Women Talking. I would say Charlotte Wells' Aftersun. I would say Alejandro's Bardo. Especially now, I appreciate that film more than ever. I mean, there's so many. I would say Noah's film. I think Noah's film is wildly ambitious and really, really worth watching. Again, and I've seen it a couple of times. I haven't seen all the films. Alice Diop's film. Have you seen Alice's film? That's an
Saint Omer. Yeah,
incredible piece of work.
Yeah.
But there's so many films. I mean, I think that one of the things that this period of time has sort of proven is that so many people came out of the pandemic really ready to explode. It was like, okay, if we're going to say something, let's say it, because we may not be able to do it again. And I think it's very, very strong work out there, whoever's been recognized or not. There's great, great films.
Yeah.
Final question is one, This may be the question that you, not specific to 2022, that you least want to deal with, but just out of curiosity for all the people who have loved your 2022 films, do you know yet, and can you share what's next? I don't know what she said, but
me neither. No, I can't either. I've got something set on a different island.
All right. A vacation?
I want to see. I like beaches.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want to do next. It might not be a film. It might just be,
Right. Todd, any hints?
I'm just going to go home.
Yeah. Well, given how busy things have been lately and for a few more weeks, thank you guys very much for making the time to come to Santa Barbara. And
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Scott.
And to close this out, the executive director of the film festival, Roger Durling.
Oh my goodness. First of all, let's give a warm round of applause for Scott Feinberg for what a wonderful conversation moderated by him. It is undeniable that these two artists, Todd and Martin, have a singular vision. They both have signature styles that are instantly recognizable. Martin McDonagh was someone I've greatly admired since 1986 when I got to see two of his plays, Beauty Queen of Lebanon and The Cripple of Inishmaan. And I obsessively look forward to his subsequent theatrical work. The Lonesome West, The Lieutenant of Inishmore, A Beheading of Spokane, and Hangman, which was, by the way, which was auspiciously the last work I would see before COVID paralyzed our lives for 2 years. It was such a memorable work, Hangman. Then, in its memory, I was able to find solace during a period in which live theater was impossible. The New York Times has called Martin the theater's reigning master of gory Irish Gothic. And then to the joy of us, I missed that. And then to the joy of us who love movies as much as theater, Mr. McDonagh became a filmmaker, bringing with him dark imagination and his arsenal of absurd violence, nasty laughs, loads of great talk, and people behaving badly, and such rich characters that allows his performers to bring out their best. Martin juxtaposes comedy against violence and churns out laughter at the most unexpected moments, catching you unguarded and wondering, why are you chuckling at this particular situation? His work has a sentimental cordiality, and all of a sudden, it can turn savage. And as he shows in Banshees, he can blend Irish folksiness with absurdity. But to me, the most shocking aspect is the big heart that palpitates in all of his work. There's whimsy, eccentricities, and of course, Gaelic charm. I can honestly say, Martin, that I look forward to what you do next, both in theater as well in the movies. It's rare to find someone who is a master at both like you are. May you continue to regale us with your gifts. Late last year, Todd Field came to Santa Barbara to do a Q&A for TAR. First time I met him, and leading up to it, I was filled with so much fear, because it is rare that you meet a person of such protean talent and intellect. Are you? Oh, okay, you're not rolling your eyes. Okay, good. I've taught Todd Field's films, and the thought of speaking with him that first time at the Riviera Theater late December felt so intimidating. Soon I found out, as you guys did, that he's someone, yes, with immeasurable skill and precision in his filmmaking, but also with a wry sense of humor and boundless curiosity. He was here for the writers' panel and the producers' panel last weekend, and I can honestly say that getting to know you, Todd, has been so rewarding. It's rare to get to know your idols, and I got the opportunity this past year. A lot of American movies are committed to big spectacle and pushing your emotions. It's rare to find a filmmaker like Todd Field, who is an auteur, who can be so profound as well as entertaining. Your films, Todd, made me feel like nothing short of a miracle. I love the way you show us in your film characters with tragic flaws without passing judgment. You create an ominous sense of the inescapable in them, like great tragedies do. And after repeated viewings like I've done, I'm in awe of the command of your visual storytelling. Rich, detailed, multi-layered. Never talking down to your audience, inviting us to rise to the complexities of your artistry, which is both compassionate and severe. Not surprisingly, you work with Kubrick, and dare I put you in the same category? Well, I just did. I've seen Tar multiple times now, and the visual language you created to let us navigate the inner world of Lydia is just astonishing. You make movies that are challenging, yet accessible and impossible to stop thinking about after we see them. My only wish is you don't make us wait for a long time for your next movie. As you've had in the past, I'm waiting for your next move, Mr. Field, and the world is waiting as well. Thank you both for being here tonight. Thank you both for enriching our lives the way you've done. And here's the Outstanding Directors of the Year award.